Okay. When I take it off, it's showing thing.
And I had always done a little bit of woodworking, but I never did anything very fancy. And so when I was young, in one of the first ashrams I stayed at, they had me do some framing. There was an old house, and they had to put different closets in and things like that. So I was shown, I had never done anything, how to do this framing type of work. And I just took to it. I said, "Oh, what fun this is!" So we put in different closets and things like that. So when I went to Trabuco, I remember that the first question that they asked me, we were sitting at breakfast, was, "Do you know plumbing?" Now I thought, what an odd thing, especially I had just finished getting my degree in the Indian philosophy and Sanskrit and everything. Here they're asking me about plumbing. So I said, yes, I know a little bit of plumbing, but I know a little bit about woodworking. And they said, that there's a woodworking shop here, and the person who used to run it is no longer here. No one's been looking after it for a long time. So they kind of put me in charge of that. And I was in bliss. First of all, I loved Trabuco. If you've ever been there, in those days it was much quieter than it is now. It was really just like heaven for me. The shrine is very, very quiet. You feel like you're walking into a cave, completely dark. So the shrine was fantastic. And then the wood shop became my second shrine. So I would get to work there and do little jobs and things. And so after a few months, they saw that I knew a little bit, that I knew how to use tools, and I could build some things and everything. So immediately, that first summer, they sent me to stay in Hollywood and to work in Pasadena on the house where Swamiji lived. They were renovating the house, and there was a lot of woodwork to be done. So I did that. I stayed in Hollywood for a few months. Every morning, we'd go back and forth there and to spend the day working there. And then, when most of the work was done, they asked me, would I like to make a shrine, a little shrine for the room where Swamiji stayed. He spent, I think, 6 weeks there in when was it, in 1900, something like that. And the room where he stayed, they were turning into a little shrine room and meditation room. And other nice thing was, you know the story of the pipe that Swamiji used to smoke. He used to say whenever he left someplace, he would leave something behind. So he left his pipe behind on the mantle of the fireplace there. But when I got there, there was no mantle. There was nothing. So they asked, could I do that? So I made the mantelpiece there, and then they said, could I make the shrine? So of course I was delighted. And one of the monks in Trabuco, Swami Atmajnananda, I'll talk about him a lot this morning. He's the one who did all of the beautiful paintings that you see in the ashram. Uh, he helped me very much with the design. He was a fantastic artist, and so he helped me with that. And it was really a wonderful experience. That thinking about Swamiji the whole time and working on the shrine, I kept a picture of Swamiji there, and with a great concentration and with great devotion, day after day, I worked on this shrine and polishing it and cleaning it and everything, and it turned out pretty good. It was very nice. If you ever go there, you'll see that. Now, shortly after that, the Swami Taratmanaji, he was kind of the manager of the place. So whenever I was finished with a project, I'd go to him and I'd say, what do you want me to do next? So there was an old pump house. There was a pump that we used for the reservoir in case of fire, that we could have access to that. It was hooked up to a hose and everything. And it needed a little base for the pump. So, and dirty, dusty old place, and nobody went in there. Old tools were kept there and everything. So anyhow, I'm making this little base for it, and he saw me there at the end, And I was standing and finishing it and everything nicely, far more than I had to do probably. And he was teasing me. He said, "Oh, are you making another shrine?" So then it struck me. It struck me that yes, I really had the same mindset because I've been working so many weeks on this other thing that what I was doing was also a shrine. And so I said, "Yes, I'm making another shrine." He laughed, but it turned out to be a wonderful metaphor for me that to transpose that mindset. Sorry, so that I felt that everything that I made was like making a shrine. And to me, this was a great, as I say, metaphor for the practice of karma yoga. So that's a little bit what this talk is about. The art of building shrines. That means the art of doing everything, not just as an offering, not just with concentration of mind, but with skillfulness. We'll talk about this yoga karmasu kaushalam. This the little phrase we find in Gita, very important phrase, that one of the definitions of yoga is skillfulness in work. And skillfulness involves concentration, of course, devotion and love and everything, but attention to detail and really doing things very consciously and conscientiously. So this is kind of the theme of what I wanted to talk about this morning. I remember many years ago, one of the monks of our order was talking about karma yoga, and he said that Swami did not teach karma yoga. He said that karma yoga traditionally is a spiritual path meant to purify the heart and to get rid of our karma and to get rid of the sense of I and everything. But Swamiji taught karma as worship, that it was a little bit different. He raised it to a higher level. In much of kind of traditional Vedanta, karma yoga is considered secondary. We do karma yoga till we can reach the point where we can do jnana yoga. Swamiji, of course, incorporated everything, so that we really do just one type of yoga. But he said that it's not meant just to exhaust our karma. It's not meant to get rid of this idea of ego and all of that. That's part of it, of course. But that, or even that I'm just the witness of action. These are all aspects that we know of karma yoga. But for Swamiji, it was a way of living in the world. It was a complete transformation that everything we do becomes worship, and we have to do it the same way that we do worship. This is that I transposing this aropkara. I use that term a lot because Thakur used it a lot. That we take a particular attitude towards something and we adopt that for everything that we do. So when we do puja, we think about how we'll cut the fruits and the flowers and everything to offer in the shrine. We do that with everything. Serving the family, cutting the fruits, same thing, same mindset, same feeling that this is an offering, that is a worship. So work really becomes worship. We have this little phrase that first work and worship, then work as worship, then work is worship. So it really gets this full conversion so that everything we do becomes worship. And we do everything in a worshipful type of way. So I want to concentrate on this aspect of karma yoga. Two things. One, that we're doing everything as worship. And because it's worship, we have to do it with great concentration, with great care, and a little bit of skillfulness. A little desire to make things a little bit perfect. We shouldn't be perfectionists, and not everyone has any special skills for things. It doesn't mean that it has to be gorgeous. Say somebody makes a mala for the shrine. That means that we do it with love and devotion, with great care. Other people will be experts. They can do all fancy sorts of things. It doesn't matter. So it's not how wonderful it turns out, but Are we really doing with fully immersed in it, with full concentration, full love, and full devotion? So yoga karmasu kaushalam is very interesting that this phrase can be taken in two different ways. It's such a common phrase and such a common verse that we perhaps don't think about it too much. One way of looking at this is, what does it mean to live skillfully? It means to practice yoga, to do things with contentment and everything. The other is that the particular aspect of karma yoga is this skillful action. And as I say, none of us or all of us are adept at any one particular thing, but trying to do things with tremendous care. And all of it means devotion, it means concentration of mind, it means getting immersed in what we're doing, feeling one with the work that we're doing. This is the essence of worship. This tanmayata, feeling this oneness with that act of worship. So this is the idea that if we can work in such a way that we're fully attentive to the work, then that itself becomes a kind of yoga for us. And it leads to perfect concentration of mind, it leads to tremendous type of devotion. And it leads to this idea that what we're doing is something sacred. It's a very beautiful idea, that all work is sacred. Swamiji makes a big point of this, that nothing is secular in this world if we have the right attitude. No work is high and no work is low. That we see this in our monastic tradition, that those you join the order, especially in India, you may be working in the cowshed, you may be doing accounts, you may be doing puja. Each one is equally worship. There's no high or low, no distinction that way. And there's all a question of the mind, of how we can immerse the mind in this type of idea. So this idea, sacredness of work, is interesting because we don't even have to be religious people. We don't even have to feel that, oh, I'm doing this as an offering to God. The whole mind is on the work. We don't have to feel that. We don't have to think that, oh, I'm just the witness, body and mind, senses. Or we don't have to do any of that kind of stuff. That we may not even care about these things. But if what we're doing is something sacred, if what we're doing has tremendous meaning, if we're putting our heart and soul into it, then we'll get a great result from all of this. A very wonderful type of karma yoga. I'll give a very interesting illustration. I was flying somewhere, I don't remember where, but the plane landed in LaGuardia Airport, and we were stuck there for a long time. There was some electrical thunderstorms and things going on. So I was sitting there, just nothing to do, just sitting there waiting and waiting and waiting. And the man came to wash the windows, the window washer. And I was watching him, and I was mesmerized that he did this work with such skill. I won't say devotion, but probably he had to have been devoted to it, but so immersed in what he was doing, just the way he did it, and with each stroke without moving, those little squeegee things. Yeah. So the least amount of effort, not going back and forth and over again, just with almost like a single stroke, how we could go down and do the whole thing, and completely oblivious that who was watching him or anything. You could see that how deeply concentrated he was, and did he take pride in what he was doing? Maybe he just been doing it so long, but obviously it was something. It was a skill for him, and you could see the mind was immersed. Was he thinking of God? Probably not. Was he thinking, oh, I'm the witness, only the hands are acting? This and that? Probably not. But it didn't matter. You could see that just that skillfulness, that itself was a yoga. And I was so impressed. I always remember on the time that I spent watching him go window to window to window, with not a wasted effort, not an extra movement of the hands, nothing. It was just something, it was like watching ballet or something. It was just beautiful to see. Now, I mentioned Swami Atmajnananda. I want to talk about him a little bit because he was really a role model for me. And I really loved him very much. We had a very, very close relationship. Uh, he was such a humble, sweet-natured person. I'll tell you one incident. One day he said to me, "You want to come with me? There's an art exhibition. We can go watch this art exhibition." It was somewhere near San Diego. So I said, "Yeah, sure, good. I'd love to spend time with him." So we drove down there, and we go, and it was quite a well-known artist, and he was selling his paintings for a huge amount of money. And then when he saw Swami Taratmananji, he said, "Oh, haven't seen you in a long time." And it turned out that they were in art school together. And then he said to him, "We all wondered what happened to you. You were the most talented of all of us." And he never talked about his how skilled he was. He really uh, never cared for people to praise how wonderful his paintings were, anything like that. So he just had that simplicity about him, but tremendously talented. And whenever I think of Thakur's statement that the expert dancer never takes a false step, huh? That when he talks about the God-realized soul, because people would say, can the God-realized soul do anything, do something harmful, this and that? And Thakur would say, yes, theoretically, that nothing will stick, no karma will come to somebody who's realized God. But the test is that they can never take a false step. They can never do anything harmful. Like the expert dancer. You see an expert dancer, they'll always be in tune, in step. They'll never miss a beat that way. So this Taratmanji, he was like that. I used to marvel at just any little thing that he would draw, a simple little thing. Sometimes, because I did a lot of projects with him. He would do a painting. He would ask me, "Can I make the frame for it?" So I thought, okay. And he would draw a little profile and everything, or said little things, something, he'd just draw a little square with the sides and everything, and it would look like a work of art. I was always amazed. I remember one time Picasso, he was doodling some on a piece of paper, something, when he was eating, and they found it later, and it sold for millions of dollars. Yes, but every little thing was masterful that way. So this Swami Taratmanandi, he was like that. So he became really a role model for me, and so efficient. I learned so many things from him. Whenever we would go for a cup of tea or anything, we would work, in the afternoons and then have a little break. He would always be walking around, putting things away, cleaning up little things. Didn't waste a second. So this time management is another aspect of this type of karma yoga. So we see that this becomes a methodology, the method of work, that to be calm, not to rush things. I'll tell you another nice story. This was a very big, maybe the second year that I was there in Trabuco. We never had a bookstore there. So I thought, oh, it'd be nice to have a bookstore. So there was one bedroom, and I went to him. "What do you think about this idea?" He said, "Yeah, good idea." So there was just a concrete slab, so we put a wood floor in there. And it meant every day you had to do another section, and you had to put the mastic down and then lay down the boards and everything. So I said to him one day, "Do we have a deadline for the job? Do we want to try to finish today, work a little longer, a little harder and everything?" So he said, "The schedule is the deadline." I thought, "Oh, Baba, let me think about this." The schedule is the deadline. What did he mean by that? And what he meant was that we have hours that we work. We would work from, say, 9 to 11:30 in the morning and 3 to 5:30 in the afternoon. When it's time to quit, and we start the next day. When it's done, we've reached the deadline. That was it. That means we don't rush anything. We don't try to get it done more quickly. We don't work extra late and miss time in the shrine. We had other monks, they would purposely start jobs late so they would miss the Arati. But so this is another great lesson, that the schedule itself is the deadline. So just this idea that what do we rush for? Of course, when we're working in the world, it's different. We do have real deadlines, but otherwise, let things, when it's done, it's done. We want to make sure that it's done correctly and that we take our time and do everything like that. So this time management is a very important element of that. It reminds me of another incident. I had a very good friend named John. We used to work together at this other ashram. And the Swami there, he asked John, can you wash my car for me? And he said, of course. And he said, how long will it take? And he said, no, it's not a question of how long will it take. I can do it in 1 hour, I can do it in 10 hours. It's a question of what you want done. Because he was a really good worker. That meant he knew that he could wax it, he could detail it, he could go and take everything apart, go under the hood. It was just a question of to what extent he wanted it done. I learned another great thing from this John. This goes back to when I was putting in all these closets and things. And he came up one weekend to help me. And I thought, we'll knock out a lot of stuff. We got a lot of stuff done. The whole time he spent organizing my tools and separating the wood and this and that and everything, and said, now you can finish on your own. And it made such a difference. Of course, my wood shop is a mess anyhow, but and I tried to follow that. Then another great lesson that I learned from Swami Atmajnanananda. This is something that he quoted many times. He used to say he had an old Hungarian art teacher who used to say to him, whenever you do a job, 3 looks, 2 things, 1 do. 3 looks, 2 things, 1 do. That means that observe, watch, see exactly what has to be done. Do that 3 times. Walk around in all different directions, and then think about it 2 different times, then do it. Then do it 1 time. You won't have to redo it that time. So there's a little adage among carpenters. They say, measure twice, cut once. Yeah. Otherwise, you cut too short, you ruin a piece of wood, something like that. Now, most of what I've been talking about is manual work. That when our jobs are dealing with figures or teaching or something like that, it's a little bit different. The manual work has a special value. This is why many monasteries, probably most, if there's some work to do, it'll be manual type of work. They'll make something. In that Christian monastery, sometimes it would even be brandy or something like that, working in the fields with picking vegetables and crops and things like that. There's some type of manual work because the mind is free. I have great respect for people who do manual work. Sometimes I hear devotees that I'll ask, what your kids want to do? What are they studying? This and that. Every once in a while, someone will say, "Oh, my son, he wants to be a woodworker. He wants to be a plumber or something." I think, good. It's very nice. There's great satisfaction in working with the hands. That the mind is free and clear. That it is a very honest type of work. You don't have to worry about cheating anybody or competing with anybody else. You do your job, you complete it, some satisfaction, you get whatever you get. Of course, not as much as other types of things, but there's something special about the manual type of work. And as I say, for us, mantra can be going on the whole time. Mind can be very clean and clear and free. So this is why these types of hobbies are very good. I see some people who do this knitting and crocheting. They'll be full conscious. They can watch everything and do everything, and their hands are just doing it. It's very nice. They enjoy it, and they come out with a beautiful thing. And the whole time, the mind is free and clear to do with it. Really, the hands are just working, and they do. Look at, you see all of this that was done here. One devotee, he did all of this. Is it croquet work or croquet? Knitting work. Yeah, I don't know the difference. But I used to watch him work, and he could be sitting there and talking to you and doing all these very intricate types of things. And look at the beautiful job. But at the same time, he knows he's doing it for Thakur and Mother and Swamiji. So that's always there in the background. that type of work. So we find this, many great Christian saints. We find Brother Lawrence, a perfect example, that he really became a great saint just by working in the kitchen. And felt that he's not qualified to do too much else, to do any deep prayer or meditation or anything. So that became his worship, working in the kitchen. We have Kabir, who was a weaver. There are many instances of those who did manual type of work. But the emphasis that we have really in Gita and other places is that it doesn't matter whether one is a doctor or a lawyer or a business executive or a carpenter or a plumber or electrician. It doesn't matter. Whatever we do, this has to be done with this feeling that this is a worship. That we have beautiful verses in Gita about this. In chapter 18, we read, Sway Sway Karamani Abhirata. This means engaged in our own work. There's abhirata, engaged, but also taking some pleasure and joy out of it. Rata. So not just doing it, but really doing it with some type of deeper inner satisfaction. Some siddhim labhidhenara, that a person can achieve the highest goal, perfection. Just by doing this type of work. Swakarma nira siddhim yatha vindati tachrunu. Let me tell you how it works, he says. Yatha parvrittir bhutanam yena sarvamidam tatam swakarmana tam abhyartya. Worshipping him through one's action. Siddhim vindati manavaha. Engaged in or devoted to or delighting in his own duty, in his own job, his own livelihood, whatever it is. That person attains perfection, realization, liberation, all of that, just through the proper performance of work, looking upon it as worship. And it says, now listen as I explain how it happens. One attains perfection by this abhyartya, it's a very nice term, by worshiping or praising or revering. And so archana, it really means this type of same thing that we do in the shrine. That supreme reality, which is the source of all beings and which pervades all beings. So how do we do it? Swakarma, just through whatever action that we do and whatever work that we do. We all have different types of professions and things. At the same time, we all have to do daily things. So it's not just to the regular work we do, but even getting up and going to sleep and walking, brushing our teeth, everything we do as yajna. This is a great teaching of the Gita. Everything we do is yajna. Taking food is an offering to the divine presence within, the enjoyer, that fire that digests the food, and the sakshi, just with that attitude. If we do that, then we'll attain to the highest. Now, does it mean we have to be thinking of God the whole time? No. We can be immersed in the job itself. Deep underlying all of this, of course, is this idea that everything is an offering. That has to be there on some level. But while we're working, we can really be fully engaged in it. This is why Narada didn't do such a bad job when he carried the oil all around the world without spilling a drop. We make fun of him. Oh, he didn't think of God at all. But really, that's all. He did it as a divine command, as following that. So he should get a little credit for that. We find this attention to detail something very much emphasized in our tradition. I think more than others for a couple of reasons. One, Sri Ramakrishna, who could not even know sometimes is it day or night, is he wearing his cloth or has it fallen off? He was a stickler when it came to detail. And Holy Mother also. And it just came down through our whole monastic order. Then Swami Premananda. Swami Premananda, he was the manager of the Belur Math for many years, and he trained up all the young brahmacharis. And it became a great tradition. Again, I say, going back to Holy Mother, about cutting vegetables. She spent so much time cutting vegetables. And how it should be done without wasting anything. Just take the minimum amount of skin off and cut everything perfectly. One of the swamis I was reading recently, he was an expert at all of these things. They said that if you saw him cutting vegetables and saw the way they were cut, the size and the shape and everything, you would know which dish he was making out of it. Each one was a little bit different. There's an incident that took place once under the presidency of Swami Shankaranandaji. I mentioned him earlier. He would go around sometimes and watch the brahmacharis as they're working. And he went and he saw them peeling potatoes. So he saw that they weren't very careful about it, that it was a little wasteful, that they were working quickly, so along with the skin, some of the flesh of the potato came off. So he said to them, you take all of the peelings and bring them to my room. They didn't know what he was thinking about. But later they found that he removed the remaining part of the potato and himself made a little dish, a little potato curry, and said, now take it to the shrine and offer to Thakur. Just to show them Kaushalam, the skillfulness, how necessary it is. Swami Premananda, how he would scold these young boys for not cutting vegetables nicely and everything. Swami Brahmananda, I believe, said that he could tell what type of meditation somebody had by the way that they were cutting their vegetables and doing work, how sloppily they were doing it and everything. So all of this, especially in our monastic tradition and our tradition in general, all of this is highly emphasized. That it's not enough to do something with great devotion and to do it in a sloppy manner. It should be done with great care if we're really doing it as an offering, because Thakur was very particular. He didn't like things to be done haphazardly or elomelo. Anything should be done correctly. And if you didn't put the thing back in the right place, you'd get a big scolding from him. Everything had to be exactly where it was supposed to be. M once forgot to bring the umbrella back from the Panchavati. They had a little picnic there or something. And he said, look here, half the time I don't know if I'm wearing my cloth or not wearing my cloth, but I never leave anything behind. I never forget anything. And how we trained up Holy Mother with all of this. He told her so many things that be the first one to enter and the last one to leave, see if anybody left anything behind. All these practical little things. So the great emphasis on all of these, this idea of doing things, living consciously, living and doing things with awareness and, as I say, skillfulness. Now, if we bring in the devotional idea, then it's something even higher. We know that. We take the shoemaker. Shoemaker is making shoes. If the thought in mind is that, these shoes will be used, say, as if I'm making them for Thakur to wear. We bring in this idea. This is why I say this building shrines. We superimpose these ideas. We're very fortunate, those of us who live in the ashram here, that everything we do is directly for the ashram. But we take that same idea, and if we're working for a corporation or anything else, we still have that same feeling, because everything belongs to Thakur Mother. It's all theirs. So everything has to be done with that same type of attitude. So we see with Karma Yoga that aside from this idea, that we have many different ways of practicing it. Karma Yoga is not really the same as the other yogas. We talk about these four yogas as if they all are on the same footing. They're all a little bit different. Say, or the Raja Yoga, this is something that everybody has to do in order to perform the others. Bhakti Yoga is an attitude of mind. Jnana Yoga is a certain way of thinking. Bhakti Yoga may be just certain hours during the day. than when we do our prayer and our bhajans and all of that, but an attitude throughout the day. Karma yoga is really putting the other three into practice and utilizing them. Jnana yoga without karma yoga is nothing, is just intellectual thinking. If Jnana yoga tells us that I am the witness, I'm not the agent of action, and we don't live that way, then it's useless. If we put that into practice, and when we're working, we really feel that there's body, mind, and senses, that these are all acting, that I'm the witness. And through Raja Yoga, if we feel that, yes, I have to do it with perfect concentration of mind, and we have this feeling that none of it belongs to me. And then Bhakti Yoga, same thing, that we need to put it into practice. That doesn't mean simply doing devotional exercises and things. It means doing everything as an offering. That we do everything as an offering. What does it mean? It means that we don't do it for ourselves. That we eliminate the sense of I. All of the yogas are meant to eliminate the sense of I. The ego is the main obstacle in spiritual life. They're all meant for that. The jnani will analyze the I until he sees that there's no such thing. It's only false identification with all of the external sheaths that we have. The devotee will let that I disappear. I'm just a servant of God. God is everything. I'm nothing. And in Raja Yoga, again, we try to merge that sense of I in the chosen ideal. So we're trying to get rid of this sense of I. And we can't do it unless we put all of these things into practice. So this is where our karma yoga, all of the others need it, and karma yoga needs them. We need a spiritual attitude. As I say, either we're jnanis and we do it, or we're bhaktas. Generally, these are the two. We're bhaktas, everything is an offering. And really, there's not a big, hard distinction between we can do both. We can do both. This is what Thakur said. As long as we have this feeling of I, then I am a devotee and I do everything as an offering. If that sense of I disappears, then I feel there's only oneness, God alone exists. Then we can say God alone is doing everything, I'm an instrument. All different ways of doing it. None of them are contradictory. They're different. They're little different ways of doing things, and we can utilize all of them. We can adopt all of them and enjoy all of these different ways of practicing karma yoga. But if we add this kaushalam to it, then it takes on a different level. If we really add this deep concentration of mind and this desire to do things, I don't want to say perfectly, because nothing is perfect, but to do it with as much attention to detail and skill and everything, then it has a tremendous effect on the mind. Because when we sit for meditation, it's the same mind that's trying to be fully concentrated and detailed in everything, that same mind. And we train this mind at all other times, during the time of work. So it's very helpful for everything. So whatever our spiritual path, whether we're jnanis, whether we're in bhaktas, it doesn't matter, that karma yoga is one thing that allows us to have 24 hours a day of spiritual practice. And this is really what determines, are we really leading a spiritual life or not? So many times I hear people say that I'm a very spiritual person. They'll say that, or what is it now? Spiritual, not religious? There's a new category, huh? Spiritual, not religious. I wonder, what does it mean? What does it mean? Sometimes I almost feel like asking, well, what do you do? You're a very spiritual person. Do you do anything? It's a very vague type of thing. But actually, this spirituality is something that has to be put into practice. We have to keep this in the forefront of the mind at all times, whatever we do. Do it as an offering, do it with concentration, do it with love, but do it with this type of skillfulness. Now, I find that I finished really early today. So if anybody would like to ask anything, you can ask something. Good.
If we are doing everything with the attitude that I'm doing it for God, then I'm not living in that consciousness that Brahman is the ultimate reality. Is that how?
Okay, so good question. Then is there some Maya involved in that? There's some ignorance. We say I'm doing everything as an offering. Is this not a dualistic position? And what about this idea that I'm really, my nature is I'm one with the Brahman? This is that great teaching that Sri Ramakrishna gives us. He doesn't say that the separation is real. He doesn't say that the Jiva and Brahman are somehow separate, and the Jiva has to worship Brahman and try to attain a state of grace and union and everything. He says, as long as that sense of I is there, he's very clear about that. He said, the illustration that I like best is that this sense of I is like a stick lying on the surface of water. It gives the appearance of two. And because of the sense of I, we feel some sense of separation. Now, the sense of separation may be still a feeling of closeness to God. God dwells within my heart. God is the nearest and dearest. It doesn't have to mean that God is far off and distant or anything like that. And the other thing is that these spiritual attitudes are something that we don't have to take in a very literal sense. For example, if I say that everything I do is an offering to God, do I really think that, say, I cook something in the kitchen? Do I really think that Thakur will be able to taste this and know if it's good or it's bad? If you pin me down, I may say, that's not why I do it. That's not my feeling. It's almost as if I want to do it as if he walked into the room and I said, Thakur, I've made something for you. Mother, sit down. Where do you see I cooked something for you? I hope you'll enjoy it. I did it with great love and devotion. It's the attitude that's more important. And that's what purifies us. That what gives us the love and devotion and really can transform us. Now, the other thing that Sri Ramakrishna says is that through this type of dualistic practice, then we get closer and closer. Swamiji has a nice way of putting it. He says that love that forms between the devotee and God is like a rope. And the more we do this type of spiritual practice, it's like the rope pulling closer and closer and closer till we feel there's a oneness with God. That'll bridge the gap. Because right now, if we say, I am Brahman, I'm one with God, it's just an intellectual. If we really knew it and really understood it, we'd be free. We'd be perfect already. This is the ultimate goal. So we can say that and we can understand it, and we can say that, yeah, ultimately I know that this is true. I know that this stick lying on the surface of the water really can't separate one side from the other. It can't do it. It may look like it. If you look from above and you see this rope stretched across, you may think that there's two different parts. But just think of a swimming pool. You know, there'll be one section for small kids. It'll only be 3 feet deep. And they'll put a rope across there so they'll know that this is one section and that's one section. But you can swim right underneath. I mean, it's not separating one from the other, except in our own minds. So when the stick of ego disappears, then there's only oneness. Now, Thakur says that there's great joy in keeping a small sense of I, and this stick doesn't have to be a very opaque, hard sense of I. It can be very light and very fine. So he says, transform that unripe I into this loving type of devotee eye that can form that relationship with God, and that this will be very helpful in our spiritual life and very practical. The problem with this I am Brahman is that it's very difficult, because every second we're identifying with the body and the mind and the personality and everything. And we have to really withdraw from the world. We have to have tremendous dispassion, tremendous power of the intellect, not to get attached to anything. So Thakur says over and over again, there's nothing wrong with it, but Bordo Kotin, very difficult to put that into practice. So he says, what do? Do we dismiss it? No, we accept it. We can keep it in our pocket. That's not the thing. That's not going to be what do they call it in sports? Anyhow, that's not the way I'm going to rule my life by that particular plan. Do everything in accordance with this idea. How do we interact with other people? We see Brahman everywhere. Or we see everything as a dreamlike, an illusion. So the ultimate truth is something that will be the support and the ground for this relative truth, that we feel this sense of separation. That's why the image of the stick is so important. Other devotional schools, they'll say no, there's an absolute distinction between the individual and God, and it will never be bridged. In the state of liberation, you can, at the most, you can have a sense of oneness or union, being a part of God, but you can't say that you are God. Advaita Vedanta will say that if this ego was unreal, then nothing's left but Brahman. Brahman alone exists. We don't deny that, we accept that, and we understand that this is an ultimate goal. So Thakur says through Bhakti Yoga, we can also realize this Brahmajnana, knowledge of the Brahman, our absolute oneness. But the Maya that's involved in this feeling of separation is what Thakur calls Vidyamaya. It's Maya in the sense that it's short of the highest absolute truth of oneness, but it's that type of Maya that is helpful. Whereas this Avidyamaya is something, we'll look at the idea of the three gunas and the three thieves. Yeah? We can say that all of them belong to Maya, but Sattva is the one that helps us. It'll take us closer and closer. If we don't take the help of a Sattva, then we're stuck. We'll just stay in the woods. Yeah? See, Sattva comes and unties us from the tree and tells us you go this way, and then this is the way out of the forest and everything. If we simply stay there and say, I don't need the help of anything, I'm already free, I'm already perfect. Some people can do it. But for most of us who will say, no, let me take the help of Sattva, that means let me take the help of this Vidyamaya ego, of this I that feels a relationship with God. And through that, I'll be able to go higher and higher and higher. The more I go up that ladder, the less I'm identified with everything else. Ultimately, I'll emerge in that higher reality. So I've mentioned this a few times. It's something I read very recently, which I like, that the devotees in this Ramakrishna tradition are Advaitavadins, but Dvaitakarans. I mentioned this a few times in the Friday night class. Advaitavadins, we accept the truth of non-dualism, but when it comes to action, that we act in this world of duality because we live in this world of duality. And through that, we can reach that higher goal. It's easier for most people. And it's all the question of adhikara. It's all the question of what we're suited to. There are people who are natural born jnanis. They don't care for devotion. And they can make great progress that way. But generally speaking, they have to have tremendous dispassion and very sharp intellect, and a little feeling that this world is a little bit, is just coming and going, transitory. I don't want to have too much to do with it. Those who live in the world, and Thakur says for householders specifically, that this attitude, I am he, is not proper. Now, there are householder jnanis, there are always exceptions, but in general, he thought that for the householders and almost everyone, even the direct disciples, aside from Swamiji, he really didn't encourage too many of them to really base their spiritual life on this highest ideal of oneness, I am Brahman. That he wanted to blend, that we utilize all of the different yogas. And this is what Swamiji, even though Swamiji was a born jnani, he had the heart of a bhakta, and the active, who was more active than Swamiji? He was a real karma yogi. And who could meditate like him? The ultimate Raja yogi. Yeah. So what we really try to do is not combine the four yogas, is not keep them as something separate, but just have one yoga. There's one spiritual group that Swami Satchidananda, he was a disciple of Swami Shivananda from Rishikesh, that they call their yoga integral yoga. I like that term, integral yoga. That we really integrate all of them so that there's only one. That our yoga is a path that really takes all of them, and it doesn't say that now you do this, now you do that. This harmony, idea of harmony, means that there are all different notes, but they don't clash. The idea of integration is that they all meld together into one spiritual path, because we have different skills, we have different attitudes, we have different mindsets at different times. Some things are appropriate. I always think we sit for meditation, then we can say this world is unreal. World is a dream. Forget this world. It doesn't exist. Consciousness alone is real. Then we open our eyes, and then we see, yes, God dwells everywhere. This was Swamiji's ideal. He said, now, for the monks of the order, now you sit for meditation, you break your meditation, you go to the market and you buy vegetables for cooking, then you break that, you do puja, one after another, without feeling that we have to leap from one to the other. I remember when I first started spiritual life and spiritual practice, what a shock to my system it was when I would have to go from company of the devotees and everything to see old friends or family or something like that. Now I don't feel anything. That after a while we start to see, no, it's all one world. It's all the same divine presence everywhere. Of course, we enjoy the company of devotees more, but this is how we progress in spiritual life. Yeah, Tirthankar.
Well, we often hear that Karma Yoga is the Ishwar Arpana Buddhi and Ishwar Prasada Buddhi. So we offer the actions to the Lord and we accept the consequence as a prasada of God, a gift from God. So the second part, the accepting the consequence as the prasada from God, and the feeling of what you talked about as the paying attention to the details. So if the consequence or the result didn't come out up to the mark, so how do we reconcile between accepting it as a prasada of God versus I might not have paid the attention that was needed to the work?
Okay, there are two things. One is the results are not in our hands. This is another very, very important teaching. Our adhikara is just for the karma. It is not for the karma phala. So we don't know. We may do everything absolutely perfect from our point of view, given the information that we have, that we've done everything with great attention, with great care, with great forethought and everything, and it doesn't turn out. Then we just say, well, I did whatever I could, that's all. Now, the other thing with this type of karma yoga that we're talking about, we really don't care for the results. We're not doing it for anything. That the joy is just in doing it with that type of spiritual attitude. whether it comes out good or bad. Of course, we want everything to come out good. It's natural, especially if we're working in the world. This idea of not caring about the results is a very misunderstood concept. We care about the results. Who will do any action in the world if they don't care about the result of it? Huh? Somebody's a scientist. Will they say, no, I just want to do it with concentration. I really don't care if I develop a cure for cancer. Does that make any sense? No. They need a passionate desire to be successful in their work because they're doing it to save lives. If it doesn't work out, they simply say, oh, okay, it didn't work out. They won't have that type of disappointment and everything. They won't blame God for anything. Why didn't it happen? It didn't happen, that's all. Yeah. So this type of karma yoga, if we do it as worship, we don't care for the results. Even, am I exhausting my karma? I don't care. That wasn't my point. Am I making spiritual progress? I don't care. This is just, I see this is something sacred. And this is the attitude that I take. And as I said before, we don't even have to believe in God for any of this. We can just really feel that work itself is sacred. And it's deserving, whatever I do, it's deserving of my full attention. And there's something really special about whatever we do for our own livelihood of our family, for good of society and everything. There's a divine purpose behind all of this. In Gita, we have this idea of, the ancient yajna idea, that we're receiving everything, we give back. This mutual bhavayanta, the mutual nourishment that we've received, we give back. So just this desire to do everything freely, that we don't care for anything. Again, the Swami Atmajnananda did these beautiful, gorgeous paintings. He just give it away. He didn't like to accept money for anything. He never signed anything. Huh? Yes, he did it. That was his worship. I remember he told me once that when he joined the monastery, he assumed that he would never paint again, to give up that type of talent. He would never paint again. And then Swami Premananda said to him, no, you have to paint. Every day you do some painting. You'll paint pictures of Thakur Ma, Swami, direct disciples, and beautiful paintings of Kamarpukur, Dakshineswar, and everything. And we'll use them here. You'll give them away to people and everything. So that was really a very large part of his spiritual practice. Every morning he would go in and spend an hour or so there. And I would go in there sometimes, like walking into a shrine. You really felt this divine presence there. So I don't think we have to bother too much about what we're getting back and the end result, because nothing is perfect. If we know that we've really done it with care and we've tried our best, and it just didn't work out, something happened, then we live with it. If it's something we're working, say I'm building a shrine, I can always say that, yes, now I see afterwards that I should have done it this way. If I had done the little thing, I'll notice all of these little things. But then I did it at the time, I did it. I thought it would look nice that way, that's all. Yeah. Okay, then we can stop now. Huh? Next Sunday, Swami Premananda will be here. You know, he's been away for a long time, several months. He's coming back. He'll be here a few weeks. He'll be staying in Southern California after this, so it'll be a chance for everybody to see him. He'll speak again in November. And of course, most of us see him nowadays on the computer screen anyhow. He has his daily vlog, and we'll continue to have him contribute that way. So that'll be next week. Okay, I'll close with the chant. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinas Sarve Santu Niramaya Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschit Dukha Bhag Bhavet. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om. That's it. May all beings be happy. May all be free from disease. May all realize only good things in their lives. May no one suffer from misery. Om peace, peace, peace be unto all.